The Toronto Blue Jays have made some roster moves because of some injuries and because of a suspension that occurred over the weekend. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as the Orelvis Martinez suspension. What really went on over there and what truly happened to get him suspended for 80 games. We'll have that and much more coming up next. Welcome in everybody to Jays Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis alongside host Nick Gosse. And Nick, the real reason why Orelvis was suspended has been revealed. Is it fully definitive? We're not quite sure, but this is the version that we've been hearing. So we're going to err on the side of caution and tend to believe Orelvis in that manner. But the Jays have been forced to make some roster moves because of some injuries, because of guys having to be shuffled around. And six losses in a row. They lost every game that they played last week. We don't have to go over that. We all know what the problem with this team is right now, and it's pretty broad. It's a pretty wide range of problems, but the biggest issue is that they're just not able to pick up W's on a nightly basis. And now they're 7 games under 500. They're pretty far back of a playoff spot, and what seemed like maybe they were starting to turn the corner. They were 1 game under 500, just a few games back of that final wild card spot. They're now a bit further back, and they're not playing good baseball whatsoever. They're trending in the wrong direction. Something's got to give here, and the news hasn't really been positive as of late.
Yeah, a lot of things to go over. Like you mentioned, the Orelvis thing, which we'll definitely get into. But let's start with the moves that were made because of the need to make. There's a bunch of moves that happen. We also have an update in Dalton Varsho, which will be super interesting. Peter, I'll start with the moves, and there's a few here that we need to go over because, quite frankly, there's just so many things going on with the Jays. It's no secret they're not a very good team right now. But they can start with this, and this happened last night. The Jays claim reliever José Cuas from the Cubs and optioned him to AAA. So, Peter, this is some more AAA depth. He struggled this year at the MLB level and at AAA, but had an ERA of 3.99 and 3.58 in the MLB bullpens the past few years. So he has shown a decent amount of promise at the big league level. But again, if you're curious about him, low velocity, sinker sweeper type guy, decent whiff rate. Do you have any thoughts on this? This isn't a huge move, but figure we definitely mention it. Some more depth at a time where the Jays need some depth, especially in the AAA system.
Yeah, well, exactly. The AAA system needs depth. So does the Blue Jays team,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a bit
Yeah.
harder to find. But you have a bunch of guys from Buffalo coming up because of injuries to the big league ball club, and that because of that, you have the Buffalo team is decimated, and they haven't been playing well lately because the Jays are taking all of their players, and they have to because of everything that's gone on with the big league team. So yeah, I don't think it's anything more than a minor league move than a depth move. But Jose Cuas, has had a decent track record in the MLB. He's someone that has been around, so definitely someone that the Jays could probably take a flyer on if they had to call someone up.
Yeah.
But nothing more than that. Nothing more than a depth guy who's just going to come in and eat some innings for either the minor league team or the big league team later on in the season.
Yeah, the way things are going, it might be the big league team with how everything's transpiring. But one thing I do want to touch on here, Peter, and you mentioned it, and we mentioned it in yesterday's video, but it is Stuart Baroa, who might get a start tonight when the Jays play. Because of Orelvis Martinez being placed in the restricted list, which we'll get into again in a second, he was active in yesterday's game, will be active going forward. We thought it was going to be because of Dalton Varsho, his injury. We thought that might keep him out for a while. But as you'll see in a second, that's not the case. But Peter, Baroa is interesting. Yeah, in the Dominican Summer League, he had a 113 WRC plus. He has a late 811 OPS in AAA so far this year. He's an older guy, 25 plus years old. Do you have any thoughts on this? I don't mind it. We get another look at one of the older prospects in the AAA system who's been performing well. We've seen that it worked with Spencer Horwitz. He's looking like he's going to be a staple for the Blue Jays for hopefully years to come. Obviously, a small sample size, but I'm fine with calling up these guys at this point to give them a chance, even though it was kind of forced because of Orelvis Martinez's suspension.
Yeah, well, I want to give a quick shout out to Spencer Horwitz because he's been the lone bright spot alongside Vladdy in these past couple of games in a period where it's really hard to find silver linings. So shout out to Spencer Horwitz. He's really shown that he's a pure hitter up there. And maybe, I know he hit 2 home runs yesterday, but maybe the power is not all world. It's not elite level power, but he shows a great approach at the plate and he makes contact. And that at bat that he had against Emmanuel Clase in the ninth inning to
Best all
keep the
year.
game going. It was the longest at bat that Emmanuel Clase has ever been a part of since becoming the full-time closer with the Cleveland Guardians. So that shows you how locked in he is at the plate, and that shows you as well how talented he is and how well he can handle the bat. But in terms of Stuart Burrow, I think he'll earn his playing time here, and he's going to have every chance to do so. Kevin Kiermaier has been struggling, hasn't been swinging the bat well, and Baroa is another guy who plays really good defense and can run the bases very well. So we've seen him in spring training before. We've gotten extended looks at him over there. Um, Not too much in AAA. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't watch much Buffalo Bison's baseball, but Baroa has had some pretty good numbers there, and the Bisons were one of the better offensive teams before all of their guys are getting called up to the majors. So he was a big part of that. I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm not expecting huge things from him because he's not a big time prospect, but I am excited to see what he can do in a Blue Jay uniform.
I'm fine to see the young guys at this point just play.
Yeah,
And with the
give him a
season
shot.
now,
Just give him a shot.
yeah, and maybe he'll end up being someone like David Schneider, who was mashing a bit more than
Maybe.
Baroic, albeit in AAA, but a bit of an older guy and came up, and now he's, again, a staple on the team. So let us know your thoughts on that. One quick thing before we move on to the Orelvis and wrap up here. Bichette, a couple injury updates. He continues to progress and will test his recovery on Monday. And the good news here is that Dalton Varsho is feeling better and might be available over the next week or so. So, Peter, that's very good news. Varsho should be good. Bo Bichette's on his way back. And yeah, but let's touch on Orelvis Martinez now. And we made a video yesterday before any info came out about it, just giving our breakdown. And the truth has been revealed, and it's a bit of an interesting one. And we're not going to speculate whether he's saying is true or not. I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to assume for the sake of this video that what he's saying is true because there's no point of really speculating otherwise here. But Peter, you can pause and read through here. Essentially, he didn't mean to take it. He was given a pill by a different doctor and ultimately had Region 50, if you pronounce it Region 50, which is a PED in the MLB or something of that nature. Do you have any thoughts on this? It's an interesting one. Obviously, it's very unfortunate. The team is backing him up on this. We'll assume and we'll trust that he is telling the truth here. And it's unfortunate from the baseball side of things. I thought that would have been one of the bright spots of the season was getting him developed. And now this is another prospect alongside Brandon Barriere, alongside Ricky Tiedemann, who are having broken years this year.
Just derailed. It's just derailed his development. And I know he can go to Florida and hit over there and work on his conditioning, but nothing replaces MLB game action if you're a young prospect trying to break into the bigs. Now, it's unfortunate, terrible timing, and I guess the reason why the Blue Jays called him up when they did was because they probably knew about this and now you can get him back for the final homestand of the season and get him a few more games instead of losing him for the rest of the year, which would have been the case had he not made
And
his
called up.
debut. Now, look, whatever. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. I'm not here to speculate. But whatever you put into your body as a big league athlete, whether it's medication or injecting something, whatever it is, you know the rules against PEDs. You've seen the suspensions handed down. And now it doesn't matter what you come back and do after this. There's always going to be a dark cloud hanging over your head if you're Elvis Martinez. No one is going to forget this. No one is going to forget that you were the guy that comes up for one game, goes 1 for 3, this heralded prospect that is supposed to save the day for the Blue Jays. And then what do you do after that? You get suspended for 80 games. No one is going to forget that. That's going to be attached to your legacy for the rest of time. Okay, so that's number one. And you know the ramifications of taking PEDs. You've seen what it did to the reputation of Alex Rodriguez, what it's done to the reputation of Fernando Tatis right now. You don't have to look much further than those guys to know what could happen to you if you were to go down this path. Now, maybe he was misled and he didn't know what he was taking, but in that case, you need to verify with the team doctors. You need to ask them, can I take this? Is this okay for me? Is this going to prevent me from playing going forward? Because, like it or not, your number one priority is the major league team, and it's to be loyal to that team if you're under contract. And I know family comes first and all that, but still, whatever you take, whatever you decide to put into your body, you have to verify with your current team and make sure it's okay. And he didn't do that clearly, and now he's in the mud for it because he didn't take action and he didn't he wasn't careful with what he was doing. I don't feel sympathy for him. I don't feel bad for him because this was a stupid mistake. It was a stupid mistake, Nick, and I get the reasons that came out for which he was taking the medication, and that's fine. Like whatever you choose to do in your personal life, that's all right. But I mean, you have a job to do here, and now he's not going to get paid for 80 games for the majority of the season, and he's missing out big time. And it's just bad for the whole team involved. It's bad for him. It's bad for the organization. It's bad for his teammates, whatever you want to call it. I don't feel sympathy for him. He's going to learn from this mistake, but you just cannot make that mistake if you're coming up to the big leagues or
Yeah, and
any
hope
time for that
yeah,
matter.
hopefully on the baseball side of things, he can take whatever. I mean, you're missing, like you said, he's missing a bunch of games now, which would have been valuable experience. You can't play in AAA. You have to play simulated games in Florida, so the suspension's going to hurt his development. Hopefully, he's able to bounce back from it. But yeah, it's happening a lot more around baseball. You mentioned it with Tatis, and now the season from hell for the Blue Jays has gotten worse. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of that. If you want to check out a video from actually clicking your screen now, see you soon.